in part 2 for today. We read chapters 3 and 4, which, or at least we read chapter 4. No, I think we did read chapter 3. David has children. Abner is against Ishbosheth, so he makes David the king. And then Joab murders Abner, and Ishbosheth is murdered in chapter 4. So David mourns for both Abner and Ishbosheth, I believe. Well, it doesn't mention anything about Ishbosheth, but those who murdered Ishbosheth are put to death. And then chapter 5, we're going to start back with. So, yeah, David has compassion on those who were murdered. So, does he. Chapter 5, David, king over all Israel. Then all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, Behold, we are your bone and your flesh. Previously, when Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel out and in. And the Lord said to you, You will shepherd my people Israel, and you will be a leader over Israel. So all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them before the Lord in Hebron. Then they anointed David king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned for 40 years. At Hebron, he reigned over Judah for 7 years and 6 months. And in Jerusalem, he reigned over for 33 years over all Israel and Judah. Now the king and his men went to Jerusalem and against the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, and they said to David, You shall not come in here, but even those who are blind and those who limp will turn you away, thinking, David cannot enter here. Nevertheless, David captured the stronghold of Zion, that is, the city of David. And David said on that day, Whoever strikes the Jebusites is to reach those who limp and those who are blind, who are hated by David's soul, through the water tunnel. For that reason, they say, People who are blind and people who limp shall not come into the house. So David lived in a stronghold and called it the city of David, and David built all around from the Millo and inward. David became greater and greater, for the Lord God of armies was with him. Then Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David with cedar trees, carpenters, and stone masons, and he built a house for David. And David realized that the Lord had appointed him as king over Israel, and that he had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. Meanwhile, David took more concubines and wives from Jerusalem after he came from Hebron, and more sons and daughters were born to David. Now those who were now though now these are the names of those who were born to him in Jerusalem: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ibhar, Elishua, Nepheg, Japhiah, Elishama, Eliada, and Eliphalet. David Jesus Chavez, God bless you and welcome in. War with the Philistines. Now, when the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel, all the Philistines went up to seek out David, and when David heard about it, he went down to the stronghold. Now the Philistines came and overran the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you hand it over to me? And the Lord said to David, Go up, for I will certainly hand the Philistines over to you. Then David came to Baal Perazim and defeated them there. And he said, The Lord has broken through my enemies before me like the breakthrough of waters. Therefore he named that place Baal Perazim. And the Philistines abandoned their idols there, so David and his men carried them away. Now the Philistines came up once again and overran the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired of the Lord, but he said, "You shall not go directly up. Circle around behind him and come at them in front of the baka shrubs. And it shall be, when you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the baka shrubs, then you shall not promptly, for then the Lord will have gone out before you to strike the army of the Philistines." Then David did so, just as the Lord had commanded him. He struck and killed the Philistines from Geba as far as Gezer. Okay, so again, the reaffirmation of David being king over all Israel. And he even has the vote of confidence from all of the tribes of Israel. Whoever strikes the Jebusites is to reach. All right, I'm not sure about the meaning of the limp and the blind, but basically those, I guess. I don't know what that means, honestly. But David captured Zion, and then the Philistines, he made war against them. So, and David also captured got some concubines and wives from Jerusalem, and he had more children. Now, with the Philistines, he asked the Lord, "Shall I go up against them?" And the Lord says, "Yes." And the Lord tells him how he's going to go up against them. So David does so. And yeah, chapter 5, David is once again confirmed as king over Israel. He captures Zion and he goes against the Philistines. And last but not least, we're going to read chapter 6, Peril in Moving the Ark. Now David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000, and David departed from Bailey, Judah, with all the people who were with him, to bring up from there the ark of God, which is called by the name, the very name of the Lord of armies, who is enthroned above the cherubim. They had mounted the ark of God on a new cart and moved it from the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, and Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, were leading the cart, the new cart. So they brought it with the ark of God from the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, and Ahio was walking ahead of the ark. Meanwhile, David and all the house of Israel were celebrating before the Lord with all kinds of instruments made of juniper wood, and with lyres, harps, tambourines, castanets, and cymbals. But when they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah reached out toward the ark of God and took hold of it, because the oxen nearly overturned it, and the anger of the Lord burned against Uzzah, and God struck him down there for his irreverence. Irreverence. That's a tongue twister. Lip twister. And he died there by the ark of God. Then David became angry with the Lord because of the Lord's outburst against Uzzah, and that place has been called Perez Uzzah to this day. So David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said, "How can the ark of the Lord come to me?" And David was unwilling to move the ark of the Lord into the city with him, but David took it aside to the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite. The ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, for 3 months. And the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. the ark is brought to Jerusalem. Now it was reported to King David, saying, "The Lord has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him on account of the ark of God." So David went and brought the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with joy. And it was so, or sorry, and so it was that when those carrying the ark of the Lord marched 6 paces, he sacrificed an ox and a fatted steer. And David was dancing before the Lord with all his strength. And David was wearing a linen and an ephod. Linen ephod. So David and all the house of Israel were bringing up the ark of the Lord with joyful shouting and the sound of the trumpet. Then it happened as the ark of the Lord was coming into the city of David that Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked down through the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord. And she was contemptuous of him in her heart. Now, they brought in the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside the tent which David had pitched for it. And David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. When David had finished offering the burnt offering and the peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of armies. Further, he distributed to all the people, to all the multitude of Israel, both to men and women, a cake of bread, one of dates, and one of raisins to each house, or to each one. Then all the people left, each to his house. But when David returned to bless his own household, Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, "How the king of Israel did confide himself today, for he exposed himself today in the sight of his servants, female slaves, as one of the rabble shamelessly exposes himself." But David said to Michal, I was before the Lord, who preferred me to your father and to all his house, to appoint me as a ruler over the people of the Lord, over Israel. So I will celebrate before the Lord, and I might demean myself even more than this, and be lowly in my own sight. But with the female slaves of whom you have spoken, and with them, I am to be held in honor. And Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no children to the day of her death. The word of the Lord. Praise be to God. Yeah, well, in chapter 7, that's where we're going to start back next time. Chapter 6, now, they transport the ark to Obed-Edom. Because of that, the Lord blesses them. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure what Uzzah did. But what does it mean by the oxen nearly overturned the ark of the Lord? I'm not sure what that means, but it is what it is. But the Lord struck him down for that. And David was angry at that, or I'm not even sure if it's angry or is it worried. It says angry, but I think it's more worried or stressed or anxious or something in this context. So he feared the Lord that day. Yes. So they brought the ark to Jerusalem. And then Michal, Saul's daughter, one of David's first wives, becomes jealous and decides to call him out for the exposing himself to the female slaves for whatever reason. But David says that the Lord was there with him. So David celebrates and offers burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And David celebrates in all the household of David and all the people there. joyful shouting and the sound of the trumpet. So, chapter 3, as we said, David's children, Abner joins David and is killed by Joab. And David mourns for that. And then the former king in chapter 4, Ishbosheth, is also murdered. So David has both murderers killed. Chapter 5, David is once again affirmed as the king over all Israel, not just Judah, but also Israel. And he goes to war with the Philistines. And then chapter 6, they transport the ark to Obed-Edom and then eventually Jerusalem. And then they go into, what's it called? Jerusalem, and then celebrate. Mahal is upset for some reason, which I'm not sure. But yeah, that's it for tonight. And we're going to read chapter 7 tomorrow. Thank you, David Jesus Chavez, for joining in. God bless y'all. Sleep deep, rest and shine bright, and go in peace, and seek the love of the Lord.